The call came at 8:03 a.m. on Monday, March 13th, 2006. I was in my office at the Royal Free Hospital in London. I'd been an intensive care consultant for 11 years. I thought I'd seen most of what could go wrong with a human body. The voice on the phone was a clinical trial nurse from Northwick Park Hospital. She spoke very carefully. 6 men, all between 19 and 36 years old, all healthy volunteers, all admitted to their intensive care unit 90 minutes earlier, all now showing signs of catastrophic multi-organ failure. She said they'd been given a drug called TGN-412 at 8 a.m. that morning, a monoclonal antibody designed to activate T cells in the immune system. First dose in humans. Administered intravenously at 0.1 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, 1/500th of the dose that had been safe in monkeys. By 8:50 a.m., all 6 men were in respiratory distress. Phase 1 trials test safety in healthy volunteers, not efficacy. That comes later. You give a small dose of a new compound. You watch them. You measure everything. The developer was a German biotech company called Tegenero. 8 years of development. 50 million euros invested. Parexel International ran the trial, a large contract research organization. Everything by the book. The men were dosed at 8-minute intervals, not simultaneously. That's standard practice. You stagger it so if something goes wrong with the first volunteer, you can stop. It didn't matter. By the time the first man began screaming, all 6 had already received their infusions. When I arrived at Northwick Park at 9:47 a.m., they'd moved all 6 men to intensive care. The youngest was 19 years old, Ryan Wilson, a plumbing apprentice. He'd signed up for £300, money to visit his girlfriend in Scotland. His head had swollen to twice its normal size. All 6 men were in the same state, faces distorted beyond recognition, temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, blood pressure collapsing, kidneys failing, lungs filling with fluid, their immune systems attacking every organ simultaneously. This wasn't an allergic reaction. This was something else. The trial protocol was perfect, reviewed by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, the Ethics Committee, independent safety experts. The dose was conservative, 1/500th of the safe dose in primates. The monitoring was comprehensive. Every precaution that regulatory science required had been taken. The drug had done exactly what it was designed to do. It activated T cells, massively, immediately, all at once. In monkeys, this had been fine. Monkey T cells have different receptor distributions, different activation thresholds. The drug bound to the receptors but didn't trigger the cascade. In humans, it triggered everything. We call it a cytokine storm. Your immune system releases all its chemical mediators at once. Inflammatory proteins flood your bloodstream. Your blood vessels become permeable. Fluid leaks into your tissues. Your organs swell. Your blood pressure drops. Your body attacks itself faster than we can intervene. Ryan Wilson lost his fingers, then his toes, then parts of both feet. The tissue died from the inside. We amputated what we could save him from. Another man's lungs never recovered. Ventilator for 9 weeks. A third developed dry gangrene across 40% of his skin. All 6 survived, barely. Tegenero collapsed within 4 months. Insolvency proceedings began in June 2006. 8 years of research. 50 million euros. A phase 1 trial that followed every rule we had. The interesting part came later. We convened an expert working group, reviewed every aspect of the trial design, the medicines and healthcare products. Regulatory agency published new guidelines in July 2007, changed how first-in-human trials dose volunteers, changed the intervals, changed the risk assessment frameworks for immunomodulatory biologics. Those guidelines are named after this case. We wrote them so it wouldn't happen again. I've supervised first-in-human trials since then. Lots of them. The new protocols work. We haven't had another incident like this. But here's what stayed with me. 3 months after the incident, I was asked to testify at the inquiry. They wanted to know if anyone had been negligent, if corners had been cut, if the trial design was flawed. I reviewed everything again, the preclinical data, the protocol, the regulatory submissions, the dose calculations, the monitoring procedures. It was all correct. The problem wasn't that someone made a mistake. The problem was that our models were good enough to convince us, but not good enough to predict what would actually happen. We tested TGN-ORM 1412 in every model we had. It passed every test. And then we gave it to humans, and it nearly killed 6 men in 90 minutes. The question the inquiry kept asking was simple. How do you know when your models are wrong before you test them in people? You don't. You run the trial. You watch what happens. And if you're lucky, everyone survives long enough for you to write new guidelines. Ryan Wilson came to see me about a year later. He'd heard I'd been part of the expert group. He wanted to know if we'd figured it out, if we understood why it happened to him. I told him yes. We understood the mechanism, the receptor binding, the cytokine cascade, the species difference in T-cell activation thresholds. We understood it completely. He asked me if I'd have taken that drug, knowing everything we learned. I said no, of course not. He asked me if I would have taken it before, if I'd been offered £300 to spend a week in a trial unit. I didn't answer him, because the truth is, I did see that protocol in February, before the trial started. I was one of the independent reviewers. I approved it. He never got to Scotland. Ryan waited for me to say something else. We were standing in the corridor outside the lecture hall, where I'd just presented to a room of 200 medical students the latest safety protocols, the lessons learned from TGN 1412. He'd waited 90 minutes for me to finish, just standing there. Did you know, he asked, when you signed off on it? Did you know what it would do? I told him no. I told him the protocol looked sound. The preclinical data was comprehensive. The dose escalation was conservative. Everything by the book. He nodded, like he expected that answer. Then he asked me something I wasn't prepared for. What did you get paid to review it? I said it was voluntary, part of the regulatory framework. We don't get paid for ethics committee work. He looked at me for a long time. I got 300 quid, he said. You got to feel like a good person. After he left, I went back to my office and pulled the file. I hadn't looked at it since the inquiry, since we'd all submitted our statements and sworn our oaths and explained our reasoning. The protocol was 63 pages. I reviewed it on a Thursday afternoon between clinic and a dinner meeting. I remember because I'd been annoyed about the timing, annoyed that they needed comments back within a week. I made notes in the margins, suggested clarifying the inclusion criteria. questioned whether the observation period was sufficient, recommended additional monitoring in the first 2 hours post-dose. They ignored that last one, said it was unnecessarily cautious given the preclinical safety profile. I approved it anyway. The inquiry never asked me how long I spent on the review, never asked what else I had going on that week, never asked if 63 pages was enough time to catch what 6 pharmaceutical companies and a contract research organization and 3 independent laboratories all missed. They asked if the protocol met regulatory standards. I said yes, because it did. They asked if I had concerns about safety. I said no, because I didn't. They asked if I'd do anything differently. I said I'd recommend more conservative dosing intervals, longer observation windows, enhanced monitoring protocols. I didn't say I'd spend more than 2 hours reading the protocol. I didn't say I'd actually read the appendices. I didn't say I'd look up every citation instead of trusting the summary tables. Because then they'd ask why I didn't do those things the first time. The file was still there, in my office, in a folder marked TGN Pharmacine 12, Ethics Review Materials. Page 37 had a table. Receptor binding affinity across species. Human, cynomolgus monkey, rhesus macaque, rabbit, rat, mouse. The human data was in vitro. Cell cultures. Not whole organisms. Not live immune systems in stress conditions. I remembered reading it. Remembered thinking it looked thorough. I don't remember noticing that every single safety study was done in animals that responded differently to CD28 activation than humans do. But it was there, in the appendix, in the supplementary methodology, in the discussion section of 3 separate papers cited in footnote 42. I should have seen it. No, that's not right. I did see it. I read those words. My eyes passed over that table. I made a tick mark in the margin that said reviewed. I just didn't understand what it meant. There's a difference between reading something and understanding it, between reviewing a protocol and actually thinking through what happens when a novel antibody activates every T cell in someone's body simultaneously, between doing your job and taking responsibility for 6 men who trusted you to do it properly. The other reviewers said the same things at the inquiry. The protocol was sound. The preclinical work was thorough. The dose was reasonable. Everything met the guidelines. We all approved it. We all went home and had dinner and forgot about it until the phone call started coming in on that Monday afternoon. Ryan's medical records were part of the inquiry evidence. I didn't read them during the investigation. I told myself it wasn't necessary. We were looking at systems and protocols, not individual outcomes. But they were in the file, in my office, so I read them. He was admitted to intensive care at 16:23. Temperature 40.1 degrees. Blood pressure 60/30. Respiratory rate 38. Glasgow coma score 8. He told the paramedics he was supposed to go to Scotland on Friday. His girlfriend's name was Sarah. They were going to stay in a cottage near Loch Lomond. He'd never been. By 1700, he couldn't remember his girlfriend's name. By 1900, he couldn't remember his own name. By 2300, the swelling in his brain was so severe they induced a coma to keep him alive. He spent 42 days in hospital, 14 of those on a ventilator, 6 months of rehabilitation, permanent cognitive impairment, chronic pain syndrome, unemployment. The compensation settlement was confidential, but I heard it was substantial. I don't know how much they decided a ruined life is worth. I still review trial protocols. I still serve on ethics committees. I still sign my name on approval documents that allow pharmaceutical companies to test new drugs in healthy volunteers. I spend longer on them now. I read every appendix. I look up every citation. I call the investigators with questions they find tedious and unnecessary. I send back protocols asking for clarification on things that probably don't matter. I recommend additional safeguards that probably aren't needed. I annoy people. And every single time I sign that approval, I think about Ryan Wilson standing in that corridor asking me what I got paid. The truth is, I don't know if what I do now makes any difference. I don't know if reading more carefully, or asking more questions, or demanding more monitoring actually prevents anything. Because the fundamental problem hasn't changed. We're still testing drugs in animal models that don't predict human responses. We're still making decisions based on incomplete information. We're still asking healthy people to take unknown risks so the rest of us might benefit someday. And we're still trusting people like me to know when it's safe. Ryan never made it to Scotland, not that year, maybe not ever, I don't know. I never asked. I should have asked. That's the thing nobody tells you about medical ethics. It's not really about principles or frameworks or guidelines. It's about knowing that somewhere, someone is making plans. Someone is looking forward to something. Someone is trusting you to keep them safe. And when you sign that form, when you tick that box that says approved, you're making a promise. I broke that promise on a Thursday afternoon between clinic and dinner because I had 63 pages to read and not enough time to read them properly. And 6 men nearly died because I was running late. That's what I should have told Ryan, but I didn't. I let him walk away thinking I'd done everything right, thinking it was just bad luck. Just one of those things that happens when you push science forward. It wasn't bad luck. It was Thursday afternoon, and I had a dinner meeting. And that was more important than reading Appendix C.